Well, we've made it to Module 4, our final module for this course. Over the past few weeks, we've explored the structural, cultural, and leadership dynamics of higher education. In this final module, we'll bring those elements together. The goal here is to help you think holistically about colleges and universities as complex systems, and to equip you with a mindset for leading change with insight and intentionality. We'll draw from key texts we've studied so far with a particular emphasis on the final reading from Quasar. This reading is meant to serve more as a synthesis than as an introduction to entirely new frameworks. Alongside that, I'll introduce decision-making models, offer guidance on advancing organizational change, and walk you through what to expect in your final assignment. By now, you likely have a mental map of how the theories, structures, leadership approaches, and cultural elements we've discussed fit together. Of course, in higher education, often referred to as a space of organized anarchy, these elements don't always operate in harmony. But common threads do exist, and part of our work as leaders is learning how to navigate those tensions and find points of alignment. One major tension in higher education is between coordination and autonomy. While administration often focuses on structure, control, and coordination, faculty and academic disciplines tend to prioritize individualism and professional freedom. This isn't simply a debate between bureaucratic and collegial models. It's a reality that plays out in program design, disciplinary collaboration, and even institutional partnerships. For example, I've worked on initiatives aimed at sharing programs across institutions and encouraging faculty collaborations. These efforts, while promising in theory, often bump into bureaucratic barriers and long-standing cultural norms that resist integration. Even within a single institution, interdisciplinary programs face structural and leadership challenges. So while it's appealing to think in terms of networked or virtual organizational models, the path toward collaboration requires more than idealism. It demands that we grapple with inherited structures, historic practices, and deeply rooted beliefs. This is where politics become relevant, not just as an obstacle, but as a legitimate approach to enacting change. Quasar's work on political and dialectical models of change reminds us that coalitions, negotiation, and influence are not just obstacles to manage. They can be powerful tools for transformation. Now let's consider decision-making, a critical component of leadership in higher education. Shared governance is a hallmark of this sector, but it brings its own challenges. How much consultation is needed? What does consensus look like? When is a decision simply announced, and when should it be shaped collaboratively? Bill Tierney offers helpful language here, reminding us that good leadership in higher ed often comes down to good judgment and knowing how to manage others in the process. In practice, I've seen what happens when leaders misjudge that process. Sometimes an initiative enters a consultation phase with good intentions, only to meet resistance from stakeholders who feel left out or looped in too late. On the flip side, I've also experienced remarkable moments of dialogue when faculty and staff engage deeply, offer passionate insights, and help make an idea stronger through thoughtful critique. There's no single formula for successful decision-making, but we can ask wise questions. When is transparency critical? Are decisions being made at the right level? Who needs to be engaged for this initiative to succeed? Your readings introduced the garbage can model of decision-making, which highlights the chaotic nature of choices in higher education. Leaders must know when to decide, how to communicate decisions clearly, and when to revisit or adapt a choice based on new information. In a setting where people tune in and out of institutional priorities, the how and when of decision-making are just as important as the what. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about change models, another essential lens as you prepare your final assignment. I hesitated to introduce another set of frameworks, but I believe Quasar's typology provides a helpful vantage point for synthesizing everything we've explored so far. One model worth highlighting is social cognition. This ties to the idea of learning organization. This model emphasizes growth, adaptability, and the creation of networks that support sustained change. It echoes much of what we've seen in Manning and Bergquist's work, even if it hasn't always had a clear home within their frameworks. I'm also drawn to the teleological model, especially given my experience with planning. While some sectors thrive on linear planning, higher education often calls for a more iterative circular process. Over time, I've learned to embrace more flexibility, adaptive approaches that reflect the complexity of the systems we're working within. Kazar reminds us that hybrid models are often most effective. Birnbaum's cybernetic model, for example, combines social cognition with evolutionary theories to account for the feedback loops and adaptive responses that institutions rely on, especially in the face of disorganized or ambiguous decision-making environments. Kazar also offers several principles for advancing change, many of which will feel familiar from our other readings. She encourages leaders to embrace self-discovery, stay open to messiness, and avoid seeking a one-size-fits-all solution. Change, she reminds us, is often non-linear. 2 steps backward, 1 step forward. Leaders must develop the patience and resilience to navigate that reality. So what does all of this mean for your final assignment? The organizational change proposal is designed to help you apply everything you've covered, from structural and cultural analysis to leadership strategy and change theory. It's more than just a paper. It's an opportunity to map out a real-world initiative that accounts for the dynamics we've explored together. Your proposal should be rooted in context. It should name the challenges, acknowledge the institutional culture, and describe a thoughtful process for engagement and decision-making. The outline I've provided includes key sub-elements to guide your structure, but feel free to adapt it as long as you're connecting theory to practice. In my own work, I've seen the importance of strategy development, project management, intentional communication. Bethel University, for instance, is actively building its capacity in those areas, especially as we navigate strategic initiatives that cross traditional departmental boundaries. I hope this assignment gives you a taste of that kind of work and helps you think about how you can lead change in your own context. As you write, I encourage you to consider a few things. Where does communication need to happen? Who needs to be engaged? How do problems and solutions align with faculty and staff needs? What steps will you take to ensure the change is sustainable? This is your chance to bring it all together. Thank you for your thoughtful engagement throughout this course, and best of luck on this final assignment.